This is Craziest HOA Moments. It started as a rumor and ended as a case file. The rules do not care about your feelings. That is what Melissa Thompson screamed at me in the management parking lot when I asked who approved a $1,500 charge that appeared on my account overnight. She was holding a clipboard in a clear sleeve with no readable text, waving it like a weapon, and her face was already red. I had my phone out recording because I knew this was going to get worse before it got better. I work as a rideshare fleet coordinator. I schedule drivers and vehicles. I live in Boulder, Colorado in a neighborhood called the Heights at Summit Ridge Community Association, and for the last 6 months my mental health has been fragile. The harassment from this HOA has been pushing me to the edge. This was not the first time Melissa had come after me. It was just the first time I decided to fight back. The charge showed up in the portal that morning. My payment receipt from 2 weeks earlier was suddenly marked as unpaid, and the timestamp did not match reality. I had proof. I had the confirmation email, the bank draft, and a screenshot of the portal showing the payment cleared. But when I logged in at 7 in the morning, the portal showed a balance due, a late fee, and a notice that I was in violation of the payment policy. The notice was dated 3 days ago. I had never seen it before today. I called the management company. They told me to contact the records custodian. That was Melissa. When I called her, she told me the portal was down and I had to deliver paper proof in person today. She did not say where. She did not say when. She just said today, and then she hung up. So I drove to the management office. I brought my binder, I brought my bank statements, I brought the confirmation email printed on 3 different pages because I was not taking any chances. The office was closed. There was a handwritten note on the door with no readable text that said to meet at the parking lot behind the clubhouse. I drove there. Melissa was waiting. She did not let me talk. She started yelling the second I stepped out of my car. She said I was harassing her by asking who approved the charge. She said the portal was correct and my receipt was fake. She said if I made her repeat herself, it would get more expensive. That was her catchphrase. She said it all the time. I had heard it before, at a meeting 6 months ago when another homeowner asked about a landscaping assessment that showed up without a vote. Melissa had stood up, pointed at the guy, and said the exact same thing. If you make me repeat myself, it gets more expensive. The guy had paid. He told me later he was too tired to fight. I understood. I was tired too. But this time I was also angry. Melissa kept talking. She said the payment policy required certified funds for any payment over $500, and my bank draft did not count. She said the rule had always been there and I should have read the handbook. I told her I had read the handbook. I told her the handbook said checks and electronic payments were accepted for all amounts. She said the handbook was outdated and the board had passed a new policy in executive session 3 months ago. I asked where the new policy was published. She said it was in the minutes. I asked where the minutes were posted. She said they were available on request for a fee. I asked what the fee was. She said $50 per document. I asked how many documents I would need. She said that depended on what I was requesting. I asked for the minutes from the executive session. She said I had to submit a written request and wait 10 business days. I said the portal told me I had to deliver proof today. She said that was a separate issue and the deadlines did not conflict. I let her talk because every word was helping me. Melissa had a tell. When she was lying, she jingled her key ring. It was a massive ring with too many keys, and she wore it on a carabiner clipped to her belt. Every time she changed the story, the keys jingled. I heard it when she said the handbook was outdated. I heard it again when she said the board had passed the policy in executive session. I heard it a third time when she said I could not request the minutes without a written form. I knew she was lying because I had already done my homework. 6 months ago, when the landscaping guy got hit with the surprise assessment, I had started keeping notes. I did not know why at the time. I just had a feeling that something was wrong. The HOA had a pattern. Charges would appear in the portal without warning. Notices would show up on doors overnight. Violations would stack up for things that were not violations the week before. People would complain, and Melissa would tell them the rules had always been that way, and if they did not like it, they could read the handbook. But the handbook never matched what Melissa said. I kept a copy of every version. I had 3 different editions from 3 different years, and none of them mentioned certified funds. None of them mentioned executive sessions. None of them mentioned a 10-day waiting period for records requests. I also had something else. I had a contact, a paralegal friend named Jason who helped me organize the evidence packet. Jason had worked on HOA cases before, and he told me that most HOA fraud cases start the same way. Someone in leadership weaponizes the records process. They delay requests. They charge excessive fees. They lose documents. They rewrite the rules in real time and hope no one checks. Jason told me that if I could prove a pattern, I could force an audit. And if the audit found fraud, the board would have to publish standards and timelines to all homeowners. That was my goal. I wanted the truth. I wanted the pattern exposed. I wanted Melissa stripped of her power. But first, I had to survive this conversation. Melissa was still talking. She said I had 5 days to pay the balance, or she would authorize a lien. She said the lien would include attorney fees, collection fees, and interest compounded daily. She said I could avoid all of it if I just admitted I was wrong and paid the full amount today. I asked what the full amount was. She said $2,300. I said the portal showed $1,500. She said the portal was delayed and the fees had already accrued. I asked her to show me the breakdown. She said she did not have to. I asked her to show me the authorization for the lien. She said it was in the policy. I asked which policy. She said the one I should have read. I said I wanted to see it. She said I could request it for $50 and wait 10 business days. Then Melissa said something that changed everything. She said if I kept arguing, she could fine me daily until I gave up and cried. She said it with a smile. She said it loud enough that the teen on the bike heard it. The kid was maybe 16, and he had braked hard to watch the argument. He was just standing there, straddling his bike, staring at Melissa like she was insane. When she said the line about fining me daily, the kid pulled out his phone and started recording too. Melissa did not notice. She kept going. She said the board had given her full enforcement authority, and she did not need to justify her decisions to anyone. She said the HOA could tow my car if I parked in the wrong spot. She said they could fine me for leaving my trash cans out too long. She said they could charge me for any violation they wanted, and I would have to prove I was innocent. She said that was how the rules worked, and if I did not like it, I could move. I asked her if she was on the record saying all of that. She said yes. I asked her if she was sure. She said yes, louder. I held up my phone and turned the screen toward her so she could see the recording timer. She froze. Then she lunged at me. Not a punch, not a shove. She just reached out like she was going to grab the phone. I stepped back. The teen on the bike yelled something. A neighbor who had been walking past stopped and asked if everything was okay. Melissa spun around and told the neighbor to mind her own business. The neighbor did not move. She pulled out her phone too. Melissa realized she was surrounded by cameras. She stepped back. She smoothed her cardigan. She jingled her keys. She said I had until Friday to pay the balance or she would authorize the tow. Then she walked to her car and drove away. I stood there for a minute, breathing hard, trying to process what had just happened. The teen on the bike asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. He said Melissa was crazy. I said I knew. He said he had the whole thing on video if I needed it. I thanked him and gave him my number. The neighbor came over. She said her name was Carol and she lived 3 streets over. She said Melissa had done the same thing to her last year. Carol had gotten a notice for a landscaping violation that did not exist. She had fought it for 2 months and eventually gave up because the fees kept stacking. She said she wished she had recorded it. I told her I had just started. Carol asked what I was going to do. I said I was going to reopen a cold case. The cold case started 18 months ago. A homeowner named Greg had reported that $50,000 was missing from the reserve fund. Greg was an accountant. He was not guessing. He had requested the financial statements, cross-referenced them with the budgets, and found a gap. He brought it to the board. The board said the money had been reallocated to emergency repairs. Greg asked for the invoices. The board said the invoices were with the management company. Greg asked the management company. The management company said the invoices were with Melissa. Greg requested the invoices from Melissa. She charged him $50 per document and told him to wait 10 business days. He paid. He waited. The documents never came. He followed up. Melissa said the request had been lost and he would need to submit a new one. He submitted a new request. She said the fee had gone up to $75 per document because of the increased workload. He paid again. She sent him 3 invoices. They were all dated after the reserve fund transfer. They did not add up to $50,000. They added up to $12,000. Greg went back to the board. He said the numbers did not match and he wanted an audit. The board said an audit would cost $20,000 and they did not have the budget. Greg said the missing money was $50,000, so an audit would still save them $30,000. The board said they would take it under advisement. They never did. 2 months later, Greg got a notice that his driveway had a crack and he was in violation of the pavement maintenance policy. The fine was $500. Greg fought it. The fine doubled. He fought it again. The fine doubled again. Eventually, Greg paid $4,000 and moved out of the neighborhood. No one talked about it after that. The reserve fund stayed short. The board stayed quiet. Melissa stayed in power. The case went cold. But I never forgot. I had been at the meeting when Greg presented his findings. I had seen the spreadsheets. I had seen the board shut him down. I had watched him leave the neighborhood 6 months later, exhausted and broke. I knew the case was not over. I knew someone had stolen that money. I just did not know how to prove it. Now I had a reason to dig. I went home and pulled out my binder. I had been collecting documents for 6 months, but I had not organized them yet. I spread everything out on my kitchen table. I had payment receipts, portal screenshots, email threads, handbook excerpts, meeting minutes, and a ledger printout that Jason had helped me pull from the county records. The ledger showed every financial transaction the HOA had made in the last 3 years. It was public record. Anyone could request it. But most people did not know it existed. I started cross-referencing. I matched the dates on the reserve fund transfer with the dates on the invoices Melissa had sent to Greg. They did not line up. The invoices were dated 3 months after the transfer. That meant the money had been moved before the repairs were done. That was not how reserve funds worked. Reserve funds were supposed to be spent on actual expenses, not moved around in advance. I kept digging. I found another pattern. Every time someone requested records from Melissa, the fee went up. The first few requests were $50, then $75, then $100, then $150. The fees were not consistent. They were not based on the number of pages. They were based on how much Melissa wanted to charge, and every time someone paid, the documents they received were incomplete. I found a third pattern. Every time someone challenged Melissa, they got hit with a violation notice within 2 weeks. The violations were always different: landscaping, parking, trash cans, paint color, mailbox placement, driveway cracks, but the timing was always the same. Challenge Melissa. Get a violation. Fight the violation. Get another one. Keep fighting and the fines would stack until you gave up or moved. If this story is making you as angry as it made me, hit the like button and subscribe for more HOA nightmares. I called Jason and told him what I had found. He said it sounded like a pattern of retaliation and records manipulation. He said if I could prove that Melissa was backdating documents or charging fees that were not authorized, I could file a complaint with the state. He said the state took HOA fraud seriously, especially when it involved financial records. He said I needed one more piece of evidence, something concrete, something that could not be explained away. I knew where to find it. The next morning, I went to the county clerk's office. I requested a full copy of the HOA financial filings for the last 3 years. The clerk said it would take an hour. I waited. When the packet came, it was 200 pages thick. I took it to a coffee shop and started reading. The first thing I noticed was that the financial filings did not match the financial statements the board had been giving to homeowners. The filings showed different numbers for the reserve fund, the operating budget, and the special assessments. The differences were small at first. A few $100s here, a few thousand there. But over 3 years, the discrepancies added up to almost $70,000. The second thing I noticed was that Melissa had signed every filing. Her signature was on every page. She was listed as the treasurer, even though the board meeting minutes listed someone else as treasurer. That meant Melissa was either filing documents without board approval, or the board was letting her do it and pretending they did not know. The third thing I noticed was a memo attached to one of the filings. The memo was dated 2 years ago. It was addressed to the board. It was signed by a former board member named Linda Chen. The memo said that Melissa had been submitting invoices for vendor payments that did not match the approved budget. Linda said she had asked Melissa for copies of the contracts. Melissa had refused. Linda said she was concerned that the payments were unauthorized and possibly fraudulent. She recommended an audit. The board had voted down the audit. 3 weeks later, Linda resigned from the board. The resignation letter was in the packet. Linda said she could no longer serve on a board that refused to investigate financial irregularities. She said she had documentation of the irregularities and she would be happy to share it with any homeowner who requested it. I had found my trump card. I called Linda. She answered on the second ring. I told her who I was and why I was calling. She said she had been waiting for someone to ask. She said she still had all the documentation. She said she had tried to bring it to the board multiple times, but they kept shutting her down. She said Melissa had threatened to sue her for defamation if she kept talking. Linda had decided it was not worth the fight, but she had kept the files. Linda said she would send me everything. She said it would take a day to scan it all. I told her I would wait. She said she was glad someone was finally doing something. She said Melissa had been running the HOA like a personal fiefdom for years, and the board was too scared or too lazy to stop her. I hung up and called Jason. I told him what I had found. He said the memo from Linda was gold. He said it established a pattern and a motive. He said if I could combine the memo with the ledger, the financial filings, and the records request denials, I could build a case that would force the board to act. He said I should also document every interaction with Melissa from this point forward, every email, every phone call, every meeting. He said I needed to create a timeline so the facts were undeniable even to people who hated drama. I said I was already doing that. Jason said good. He said the next step was to force a confrontation. He said I needed to put Melissa on the record denying things that I could later prove were true. He said that would make it impossible for her to claim she had made an honest mistake. He said it would show intent. I asked how I was supposed to do that. Jason said I should request the reserve fund invoices again. He said I should do it in writing, with witnesses, and I should ask for specific documents that I already knew existed. He said when Melissa refused or claimed the documents did not exist, I would have her on the record lying. I liked that plan. I went back to the management office the next day. This time, the office was open. The clerk at the front desk said Melissa was not available. I said I would wait. The clerk said Melissa did not take walk-ins. I said I was not leaving until I submitted my records request in person. The clerk sighed and picked up the phone. Melissa came out 5 minutes later. She looked annoyed. She asked what I wanted. I handed her a written request for the reserve fund invoices. I asked for the invoices that matched the $50,000 transfer from 18 months ago. I asked for the contracts that authorized the payments. I asked for the board resolution that approved the transfer. I asked for all of it in writing, with dates and amounts. Melissa looked at the request. She said the documents did not exist. I said they had to exist because the transfer was in the financial filings. She said the filings were wrong. I said the filings were signed by her. She said she did not remember signing them. I said her signature was on every page. She said someone must have forged it. The clerk behind the counter made a noise. Melissa shot her a look. The clerk went back to her computer. I asked Melissa if she was saying that someone had forged her signature on 3 years of financial filings. She said maybe. I asked if she had reported the forgery to the police. She said no. I asked why not. She said it was not worth the trouble. I said it sounded like fraud. She said I was not a lawyer and I should stop making accusations. I said I was not making accusations. I was asking questions. Melissa said the questions were harassment. I said I had a right to request records. She said I had to pay the fee first. I asked what the fee was. She said $200. I said the handbook said $50. She said the handbook was outdated. I said I wanted to see the new policy. She said I could request it for $50 and wait 10 business days. I asked if she saw the problem with that logic. She said no. I said I had to pay to see the policy that explained why I had to pay. She said that was correct. I said that was insane. She said if I did not like it, I could move. The clerk behind the counter coughed. Melissa turned around and told her to get back to work. The clerk said she was working. Melissa said she was eavesdropping. The clerk said the whole office could hear us. Melissa said that was my fault for raising my voice. I had not raised my voice. I had been speaking in a normal tone the entire time, but Melissa was already rewriting the narrative. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Melissa saw the phone and her face went red. She said I was not allowed to record in the office. I said I was allowed to record any conversation I was part of. She said the office had a no recording policy. I asked to see the policy. She said it was posted on the wall. I looked around. There was no sign. I said I did not see it. She pointed to a blank spot on the wall and said it used to be there. I said that was convenient. Melissa stepped closer. She said if I did not leave, she would call security. I said there was no security. She said she would call the police. I said I was not trespassing. I was a homeowner requesting records. She said I was harassing her. I said I was standing still and asking questions. She said my tone was threatening. I said my tone was calm. She said I was making her uncomfortable. I said that was not a crime. The clerk behind the counter spoke up. She said Melissa had been yelling, not me. Melissa spun around and told the clerk to stay out of it. The clerk said she was just stating what she saw. Melissa said she would write up the clerk for insubordination. The clerk said she did not work for Melissa. She worked for the management company. Melissa said she would report the clerk to the management company. The clerk said fine. Melissa turned back to me. She said I had 5 seconds to leave or she would ban me from all HOA properties. I asked if she had the authority to do that. She said yes. I asked where that authority was written. She said it was in the bylaws. I asked which section. She said she did not have to tell me. I said that sounded made up. She said I was calling her a liar. I said I was asking for documentation. Melissa slammed her clipboard on the counter. The clerk jumped. Melissa said she was done talking to me. She said I could submit my request in writing and wait 10 business days like everyone else. I said I had just submitted my request in writing. She said it was not on the correct form. I asked what the correct form was. She said I could request the form for $25. I said that was absurd. She said that was the policy. I asked if the policy was written down anywhere. She said yes. I asked where. She said in the records. I asked how I was supposed to request the records if I did not know the policy for requesting records. She said that was my problem. I said that was circular logic. She said I was wasting her time. I stopped recording and put my phone away. I thanked the clerk and walked out. I had everything I needed. That night, I put together the timeline. I included the memo from Linda. I included the ledger. I included the financial filings. I included the screenshots of my payment receipt and the portal showing it had been changed. I included the recordings of Melissa threatening me, lying about policies, and refusing to provide documents. I included the records request denials. I included the fee increases. I included the violation notices that had been sent to Greg, Carol, and 2 other homeowners I had tracked down. The timeline was 20 pages long. It was clean. It was detailed. It was undeniable. I sent a copy to Jason. He called me 10 minutes later. He said it was perfect. He said I needed to submit it to the board and demand a response. He said if the board ignored it, I could take it to the state. He said if the state opened an investigation, the board would have to act. I asked what I should do about the tow threat. Melissa had said she would authorize a tow if I did not pay by Friday. It was Thursday. Jason said I should document the threat and then call the tow company directly. He said most tow companies would not touch an HOA dispute if they thought there was a legal issue. He said if I could get the tow company to back off, it would take away Melissa's biggest weapon. I called the tow company. I got the dispatcher on the phone. I explained the situation. I said the HOA was threatening to tow my car for a payment dispute, but I had proof that I had already paid. I said if they towed my car, I would hold them liable for the wrongful tow and I would file a complaint with the state. The dispatcher said she would need to see the authorization from the HOA before she would dispatch a truck. I asked if she could confirm what the authorization requirements were. She said the HOA had to provide a written notice, a violation code, and a board resolution authorizing the tow. I asked if she could put that on speaker. She said sure. I recorded the call. The dispatcher repeated the requirements. She said if the HOA did not provide all 3 items, she would not dispatch a truck. She said she had dealt with HOA disputes before and she was not interested in getting sued. I thanked her and hung up. I called Melissa. I told her I had just spoken to the tow company and they required a written notice, a violation code, and a board resolution. I asked if she had all 3. She said yes. I asked her to send me copies. She said no. I asked why not. She said I did not need to see them. I said the tow company said I did. She said the tow company was wrong. I said I had just confirmed the requirements with the dispatcher. Melissa said the dispatcher did not know the HOA policy. I said the dispatcher knew the tow company policy. Melissa hung up. I forwarded the recording to Jason. He said Melissa was bluffing. He said she did not have a board resolution because the board had not authorized a tow. He said if she tried to tow my car without authorization, the tow company would refuse, and Melissa would be exposed. He said I should park my car in my driveway and wait. He said if a tow truck showed up, I should call the police and play the recording. Friday came. I parked my car in my driveway. I waited. No tow truck. I checked the portal. The charge was still there. I called the management company. They said the charge was under review. I asked who was reviewing it. They said Melissa. I said that was a conflict of interest. They said they would pass my concern along. I did not hear anything for a week. Then I got a letter in the mail. It was from Melissa. The letter said my records request had been denied because the documents I requested did not exist. The letter said the fee for the denial was $100. I read the letter 3 times. Melissa was charging me $100 to tell me that the documents I had requested did not exist. Documents that I knew existed because I had copies of them from the county clerk. I called Jason. He said Melissa had just given me everything I needed. He said the denial letter, combined with the county filings, proved that Melissa was lying. He said I should submit the timeline to the board immediately and demand an emergency meeting. He said if the board refused, I could take the timeline to the state and the press. He said either way, Melissa was done. I sent the timeline to every board member. I sent it certified mail so I would have proof of delivery. I also posted a copy on the neighborhood group chat. Within an hour, 30 people had read it. Within 2 hours, 50 people were asking questions. By the end of the day, the group chat was chaos. People were sharing their own stories. Carol posted about the landscaping violation. Another homeowner posted about a parking fine that had appeared out of nowhere. Another posted about a special assessment that had never been voted on. The pattern was everywhere. The board president called me that night. His name was Robert. He said he had read the timeline. He said he was shocked. He said he had no idea Melissa had been doing any of this. I did not believe him. The memo from Linda was 2 years old. The board had voted down the audit. They knew. They just did not care. But I played along. I said I appreciated his concern. I said I wanted an emergency meeting. Robert said he would schedule one for the following week. I said that was not good enough. I said the meeting needed to happen within 48 hours or I would take the timeline to the state. Robert said 48 hours was not enough time to notify everyone. I said the bylaws required 24 hours for an emergency meeting. Robert said this was not an emergency. I said Melissa was charging homeowners illegal fees and threatening to tow cars without authorization. I said if that was not an emergency, nothing was. Robert said he would call me back. The meeting happened 2 days later. It was held in the clubhouse. 40 people showed up. The room was packed. Robert sat at the front with the other board members. Melissa sat off to the side holding her clipboard. Her keys jingled every few seconds. Robert opened the meeting. He said there had been some concerns raised about the records process and the fee structure. He said the board took those concerns seriously. He said they had invited me to present my findings. I stood up. I had my binder. I had the timeline. I had the recordings. I had the county filings. I had the memo from Linda. I started with the payment receipt. I showed the portal screenshot from 2 weeks ago showing the payment cleared. I showed the screenshot from the day the charge appeared showing the same payment marked as unpaid. I asked Melissa how that was possible. She said the portal had a glitch. I asked if the glitch also changed the timestamp. She said she did not know. I asked if she had reported the glitch to the management company. She said no. I asked why not. She said it was not her job. I moved to the reserve fund. I showed the ledger. I showed the financial filings. I showed the memo from Linda. I explained that $50,000 had been transferred from the reserve fund 18 months ago, but the invoices Melissa had provided to Greg did not match the transfer amount or the transfer date. I asked Melissa where the missing money went. She said there was no missing money. I asked if she was saying the county filings were wrong. She said the county filings were incomplete. I asked if she had corrected them. She said no. I asked why not. She said it was not her responsibility. Someone in the audience laughed. Melissa shot them a look. The room went quiet. I moved to the records requests. I showed the denial letter. I showed the fee increases. I showed the pattern of retaliation. I explained that every homeowner who had challenged Melissa had received a violation notice within 2 weeks. I asked Melissa if that was a coincidence. She said yes. I asked if she saw how that looked. She said I was twisting the facts. I said I was just presenting the timeline. She said the timeline was biased. I said it was based on her own documents. Robert interrupted. He said he had seen enough. He said the board would conduct a full review. I said the board had already voted down an audit 2 years ago. Robert said that was different. I asked how. He did not answer. Then Melissa made a mistake. She stood up. She said if the board was going to waste time on this nonsense, she wanted to be on the record. She said I was a troublemaker who had been harassing her for months. She said I had recorded her without permission. She said I had lied about the payment. She said I had forged the county filings. She said I was trying to destroy her reputation. I let her talk. When she was done, I played the recording, the one from the parking lot, the one where she said she could find me daily until I gave up and cried. The room heard every word. Melissa's face went white. She said the recording was taken out of context. I played the second recording, the one from the management office, the one where she said the documents did not exist even though I had copies from the county clerk. Melissa said I had edited the recordings. I said I had not. I said I would be happy to provide the original files with metadata. She did not respond. Robert called for a recess. The board huddled in the corner. Melissa paced near the door, jingling her keys. People in the audience were whispering. Carol came over and asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. She said Melissa looked like she was about to explode. I said good. The board came back. Robert said they had decided to suspend Melissa from all committee duties pending an investigation. Melissa screamed. She said the board did not have the authority to suspend her. Robert said they did. Melissa said she would sue. Robert said she could try. Melissa said this was a witch hunt. Robert said the meeting was over. Melissa stormed out. The room erupted. People were clapping. People were asking questions. Carol hugged me. Jason texted me and said he had heard it went well. I said it went better than well. I said Melissa was done. But I was wrong. Melissa was not done. She was just getting started. The next day I got a notice on my door. The notice said my driveway had a crack and I was in violation of the pavement maintenance policy. The fine was $500. I took a photo of the driveway. There was no crack. I took another photo of the notice. The date on the notice was the day before the meeting. But the notice had not been on my door the day before the meeting. I had checked. I had photos proving it. I called Jason. He said Melissa was trying to retaliate. He said the staged violation was proof of intent. He said I should document everything and add it to the timeline. He said if the board did not act, I could file a complaint with the state for harassment. I said I was tired of complaints. I wanted Melissa gone. Jason said patience. He said Melissa was digging her own grave. He said every move she made was giving me more evidence. He said the board was watching now. He said if Melissa kept going, the board would have no choice but to remove her completely. I went back to my evidence. I had the staged violation notice. I had the photos showing the notice was not on my door the morning of the meeting. I had the timestamp metadata. I had a neighbor who had walked past my door that morning and confirmed there was no notice. I had everything. But I needed one more piece. I needed proof that Melissa had backdated the notice. I called the printer. Every HOA notice was printed on the same template with the same printer. The printer was in the management office. I asked the clerk if the printer kept a log. She said yes. I asked if I could see the log. She said she was not supposed to share it. I said I was not asking her to break any rules. I said I just wanted to know if the log was accessible. She said it was. I asked if she could check one date for me. She said maybe. I gave her the date on the staged violation notice. She said she would look. The clerk called me back an hour later. She said the notice had been printed the day after the meeting, not the day before. She said the log showed the timestamp, the user ID, and the document name. The user ID was Melissa. The clerk said she was not supposed to tell me any of this. I said I appreciated it. She said Melissa had been a nightmare to work with for years. She said she was glad someone was finally standing up to her. I added the printer log to the timeline. I forwarded everything to Jason. He said the timeline was airtight. He said I had proof of retaliation, fraud, records manipulation, and harassment. He said the board had to act now or they would be liable. He said I should send the updated timeline to the board and give them 24 hours to respond. He said if they did not, I would take it to the state. I sent the timeline. Robert called me the next morning. He said the board had reviewed the new evidence. He said they were scheduling a special meeting to vote on Melissa's removal. He said the meeting would be held in 3 days. I asked if Melissa would be allowed to attend. Robert said yes. I asked if she would be allowed to speak. Robert said yes. I said that was a mistake. Robert said it was the board's decision. I called Linda. I told her about the special meeting. I asked if she would be willing to testify. She said yes. I asked if she still had the documentation she had mentioned. She said yes. I asked if she could bring it to the meeting. She said she would. The special meeting was held on a Wednesday night. The clubhouse was even more packed than before. 60 people showed up. The board sat at the front. Melissa sat in the first row, holding her clipboard. Linda sat next to me in the back. Robert opened the meeting. He said the board had conducted a review of the records process and had found multiple irregularities. He said the board was recommending that Melissa be removed from her position as records custodian and banned from serving on any HOA committee for a period of 5 years. He said the vote would happen after public comment. Melissa stood up. She said she wanted to speak first. Robert said she would have her turn. Melissa said she did not trust the process. She said the board was biased. She said I had poisoned everyone against her. She said the recordings were fake. She said the timeline was fake. She said the printer log was fake. She said Linda was lying. She said the whole thing was a conspiracy. Robert told her to sit down. Melissa did not sit down. She said if the board removed her, she would sue every single one of them. She said she had documentation proving that the board had approved every fee, every policy, and every enforcement action. She said if they tried to blame her, she would take them down with her. The room went silent. Robert looked at the other board members. No one said anything. Melissa smiled. She thought she had won. Then Linda stood up. She walked to the front. She placed a folder on the table. She said the folder contained copies of every email, memo, and meeting note she had kept from her time on the board. She said the folder proved that the board had repeatedly asked Melissa to stop charging unauthorized fees and to provide documentation for the reserve fund transfer. She said the folder proved that Melissa had ignored those requests and threatened to sue anyone who questioned her. She said the folder proved that the board had tried to rein Melissa in, but Melissa had acted on her own. Melissa said the folder was fake. Linda opened the folder. She pulled out an email. She read it aloud. The email was from Melissa to Linda. The email said that if Linda kept asking questions, Melissa would make sure Linda regretted it. The email was dated 2 years ago. The email was signed by Melissa. Melissa lunged at Linda. She did not hit her. She just grabbed the folder. Linda pulled it back. The folder ripped. Papers flew everywhere. The room erupted. Robert stood up and shouted for order. 2 neighbors stepped between Melissa and Linda. Melissa screamed that everyone was against her. She said she had done everything for this HOA. She said she had worked for free for years. She said no one appreciated her. She said if the board removed her, the HOA would fall apart. Robert said the vote would happen now. The board voted 5-0. Melissa was removed. She was banned from all committees. She was banned from contacting homeowners outside of official meetings. The board also voted to conduct a full financial audit. The audit would be completed within 90 days. The results would be published to all homeowners. Melissa screamed again. She said the vote was invalid because it happened without a quorum. Robert said a quorum was present. Melissa said she did not see enough board members. Robert counted. 7 board members were present. The bylaws required 5. Melissa said the bylaws required unanimous consent for a removal. Robert opened the bylaws. He read the section aloud. Removals required a majority vote. Melissa said the bylaws had been changed. Robert said they had not. Melissa said someone had changed them without telling her. Robert said she was the one who had been printing the bylaws for the last 3 years. Melissa did not respond. Then someone in the audience said they had a question. It was Greg, the accountant, the guy who had found the missing $50,000. He stood up. He said he wanted to know what happened to the money. He said the audit would take 90 days, but he wanted an answer now. He said the board owed the homeowners an explanation. Robert said the board did not have an answer yet. Greg said that was not good enough. He said he had left the neighborhood because no one would listen to him. He said he had lost $4,000 in fines because Melissa had retaliated against him for asking questions. He said he wanted to know if the board was going to make him whole. Robert said the board would review all fines issued by Melissa. He said if any fines were found to be improper, they would be refunded. Greg asked if that included his $4,000. Robert said it might. Greg said might was not good enough. He said he wanted a written commitment. Robert said the board would provide one within 30 days. Carol stood up. She said she wanted the same thing. She said she had paid $1,200 in fines for a landscaping violation that did not exist. She said if the board was refunding improper fines, she wanted her money back. Robert said he understood. Carol said she did not think he did. She said Melissa had terrorized the neighborhood for years and the board had done nothing. She said the board was just as guilty as Melissa. She said if the board did not make things right, she would file a class action lawsuit. The room erupted again. People were shouting. People were demanding refunds. People were demanding resignations. Robert banged the gavel. He said the board would address every concern. He said the board would publish a full report within 90 days. He said the report would include the audit results, the refund process, and new standards and timelines for records requests. He said the board would also hire a third-party management company to handle all financial transactions going forward. Melissa would have no access to HOA funds. Melissa stood up. She said this was all my fault. She said I had destroyed her life. She said I was a liar and a fraud. She said she would sue me for defamation. I said I looked forward to it. She said she had evidence that I had forged documents. I said I had evidence that she had. She said she would prove I was lying. I said she already had, on the recordings. She said the recordings were fake. I said the metadata proved they were not. She said I would regret this. I said I already regretted moving to this neighborhood, but at least now it might get better. Melissa walked out. She slammed the door. The room was silent for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Then someone else. Then the whole room. Carol hugged me again. Greg shook my hand. Linda said she was proud of me. Jason texted me and said he had heard the vote went through. I said it did. He said Melissa was done. I said I hoped so. But I was still wrong. Melissa was not done. She had one more move. The day after the vote, I got a call from the regional supervisor of the management company. His name was David. He said he had heard about the meeting. He said he wanted to meet with me in person. He said he would be at the management parking lot in an hour. I said I would be there. I drove to the parking lot. David was waiting. He was a tall guy in a suit. He looked tired. He said he had been reviewing the timeline. He said he was shocked. He said the management company had no idea Melissa had been charging unauthorized fees or denying records requests. He said the company took compliance seriously. He said they were opening an internal investigation. I said that was good. David said he wanted to apologize. He said the company should have caught this sooner. He said they would be implementing new oversight procedures to make sure it did not happen again. I said I appreciated that. David said he also wanted to let me know that Melissa had been terminated from her position as records custodian. She would no longer have access to any HOA records, any HOA funds, or any management office systems. I said that was even better. David said there was one more thing. He said Melissa had filed a complaint against me with the management company. She said I had harassed her, recorded her without permission, and made false accusations. She said she wanted me banned from all HOA properties. I asked if the management company was taking the complaint seriously. David said no. He said the recordings, the timeline, and the board vote made it clear that Melissa was the one who had been in the wrong. He said the complaint was dismissed. He said Melissa had been notified. He said she had not taken it well. I asked what that meant. David said Melissa had shown up at the management office that morning and demanded to speak to him. He said she had been screaming and threatening to sue everyone. He said security had to escort her out. He said she was now banned from entering the management office. He said if she had any further complaints, she would need to submit them in writing. I said that sounded like a problem for Melissa, not for me. David said he agreed. He said the company would be issuing a written reversal of every fine Melissa had issued in the last 2 years. He said homeowners would receive refunds within 60 days. He said the company would also be publishing new standards and timelines for records requests. Requests would be processed within 5 business days. Fees would be capped at $25 per request. All denials would require a written explanation. I asked if that applied to my records request. David said it did. He handed me a folder. He said the folder contained every document I had requested: the reserve fund invoices, the contracts, the board resolutions, everything. He said there was no charge. I opened the folder. The invoices were there. They were dated 3 months after the reserve fund transfer, just like I had thought. The contracts were missing signatures. The board resolutions were incomplete. It was all there, the proof that Melissa had been lying the entire time. David said the audit would confirm what I had already found. He said the missing $50,000 had been paid to a vendor that did not exist. He said Melissa had created the vendor, submitted fake invoices, and pocketed the money. He said the company was working with the board to file a police report. He said Melissa would be facing criminal charges. I asked how they had figured that out so fast. David said Melissa had made a mistake. She had used her personal bank account to cash the checks. The checks were made out to the fake vendor, but the endorsement was in Melissa's handwriting. The bank had records. The police had records. It was all there. I asked what would happen next. David said the police would investigate. The board would cooperate. Melissa would be arrested. The HOA would recover the funds through insurance and through a lawsuit against Melissa. David said it would take time, but justice would happen. I thanked David. He said I had done the neighborhood a favor. He said most people would have given up. He said I had stayed with it and forced the issue. He said that took guts. I said it took stubbornness. David laughed. He said same thing. I drove home. I sat in my driveway for a few minutes just breathing. It was over. Melissa was gone. The board was fixing the problems. The management company was implementing oversight. The audit would expose the fraud. The police would handle the rest. It was over. Then I saw Melissa. She was standing at the end of my driveway. She was holding her clipboard. Her keys were jingling. She looked like she had not slept. Her face was red. Her hair was a mess. She looked like she was about to cry or scream, or both. She walked toward me. I got out of my car. I kept my distance. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Melissa saw the phone. She did not care. She said I had ruined her life. She said I had turned everyone against her. She said I had made her look like a criminal. I said she was a criminal. She said I had no proof. I said I had 20 pages of proof. She said the proof was fake. I said the police did not think so. Melissa stepped closer. She said if I did not stop, she would make me regret it. I asked how. She said she still had friends on the board. She said she still had access to records. She said she could make my life hell. I said she had already tried that. I said it had not worked. She said I was smug. I said I was tired. She said I was going to pay. I said she was the one who was going to pay. Melissa screamed. She said I did not know who I was messing with. She said she had been running this HOA for years. She said she knew every rule, every loophole, every way to make someone miserable. She said I was just a troublemaker who did not know when to quit. I said I knew exactly when to quit. I said I would quit when she was in jail. Melissa raised her clipboard like she was going to hit me. Then she stopped. She looked at the phone. She looked at the security camera on the pole behind me. She looked at the neighbors who were starting to come outside to watch. She lowered the clipboard. She said this was not over. I said it was. She walked away. I called David. I told him what had just happened. He said Melissa had violated the no contact order the board had issued. He said he would notify the board and the police. He said if Melissa contacted me again, I should call the police immediately. I said I would. The next day, the police came to my house. They said Melissa had been arrested. She had been charged with fraud, embezzlement, and harassment. She had posted bail. She was awaiting trial. The detective said the case was strong. He said the bank records, the invoices, and the recordings were all solid evidence. He said Melissa would likely plead guilty. He said I might be called as a witness. I said I was ready. The audit results came back 6 weeks later. The HOA published them to all homeowners. The audit confirmed everything I had found. Melissa had stolen $73,000 over 3 years. She had created fake vendors, submitted fake invoices, and pocketed the money. She had also charged unauthorized fees to over 40 homeowners. The total amount of improper fees was $18,000. The board voted to refund every penny. The insurance company covered the stolen funds. The HOA was made whole. The board also voted to censure Melissa in public, strip her committee powers permanently, and ban her from contacting homeowners outside official meetings. The board published new standards and timelines for records requests. Requests would be processed within 5 business days. Fees would be capped at $25. Denials would require a written explanation. The board also hired a third-party management company to handle all financial transactions. No single person would have access to HOA funds without oversight. Carol got her $1,200 back. Greg got his $4,000 back. I got my $1,500 back, plus the $100 denial fee, plus the $500 staged violation fine. The board sent me a written reversal with a formal apology. The reversal included a citation noting that the violation had been fabricated and that Melissa had been terminated for misconduct. Melissa pleaded guilty 3 months later. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison and ordered to pay full restitution. Her staged photos, the ones she had taken of my driveway to fake the violation, were used against her in court. The prosecutor said the photos proved intent and malice. The judge agreed. Melissa cried during sentencing. She said she had made mistakes. She said she was sorry. The judge said sorry was not enough. The judge said Melissa had abused her position, stolen from her neighbors, and harassed people who tried to hold her accountable. The judge said the sentence was appropriate. I did not go to the sentencing. I did not need to. I had already won. The neighborhood is different now. The new management company is professional. The board is responsive. The records process is transparent. People are not afraid to ask questions anymore. The group chat is still active, but now it is mostly about organizing block parties and complaining about potholes. Normal stuff. Healthy stuff. I still live here. I still coordinate rideshare fleets. I still check the portal every week to make sure my payments are recorded correctly. Old habits. But I do not worry about Melissa anymore. She is gone. The cold case is closed. Justice happened. And if anyone ever tries to pull something like that again, they will know what happens. They will know that someone will dig, someone will document, someone will fight, and someone will win. I will be back with another HOA story soon.